sometimes I fear that because football is such an ingrained part of culture in this country, it means that we feel like there is a model and you must follow that model and that's the only way to do it. I just don't believe it. I think there's lots of different ways that you can do things.
Lewes FC, founded back in 1885, was predominantly a men's club up until most recently, where changes within the club have allowed both men and women's teams to flourish together. The club was previously run very traditionally by local well-off businessmen, but that all changed in 2008 to 2009 when the global financial crisis struck, forcing the withdrawal of funding to the club. The club was very close to administration until 6 fans came together in a local pub to discuss fan ownership. Lewes FC is now 100% fan-owned and has adopted many policies which make it one of the most unique football clubs in the country.
So first of all, 6 people decided to take it into fan ownership, just the 6, then 60, then 600. Fast forward to today, we now have 2,400 owners. We try and reimagine what football could be like, we try and correct some of the things that maybe have happened in other football clubs where they've gone wrong. And we try to just do things differently, and it turns out that people around the world maybe wish that Lewes FC was on their doorstep as well. That's why they've become owners.
I think to start with, players would just come in here just for football, and now more is known about it. Like, people are coming here because they know it's a good place to be.
We have an owners app where people can provide feedback or vote on things like Player of the Month. We even put out a vote to all of our owners to decide what kit we would wear. A lot of our owners and fans are put in a lot of hours into the club. If you walk around here any day of the week, you'll usually see some of our volunteers. Ultimately, there's a lot of people out there who literally put in money into the club, and so they need to know what's going on, they need information. So not many clubs have the level of transparency that we have. So we publish our annual club strategy. You know, we're giving that to our fans, but we're also giving that to opposition clubs. Anyone can actually find our club strategy and figure out what we're trying to do at the club. But we do that, and then at the end of the season we issued a report to show how well we did against our own strategy.
We've had a sports psychologist, Sarah Murray, coming in and doing a lot of work with us. We've talked about our vision of being in the top 3, so we're really striving for that for the rest of this season. And then going forward, I think it's just get better and better every year. And again, promotion for us, promotion for the men's team. And I think just keeping that community spirit and just making sure we keep growing all together.
The idea that one person at the top could just dictate how a club is run is one of the reasons why football clubs have just not catered for women for so long, because usually that person is a bloke in a blazer.
They obviously won the same kit for men and the women, but the men had the white shorts, and she was just like, wait a minute, she was like the woman in the room, and normally in other circumstances or other clubs that woman wouldn't be given an opportunity to speak, or that woman probably wouldn't even be in the room. So Maggie was able to put a perspective on it. As females obviously going through the menstrual cycle, the white shorts is, men wouldn't think of that, but it's just so vital that can detriment our performance. And now we have black shorts or red shorts if we need to as well.
Another big chapter for the club was in 2017 when some directors stood for election from all the owners and said that should they be elected, they would like to introduce a concept of equality. They were elected, and since then the structure of the club has changed, making it a much more equal club where there is equal treatment and value for the players. Lewes FC are now the only team in England whose women's team currently play in a higher division than their men's team.
Lots and lots of people get really hung up about pay. This is just a natural thing, so people are always asking questions about equal pay. The way we do it is we have equal playing budgets. So everyone's not paid the same. You might still be able to value a striker as worth more than another player, but essentially you are giving the 2 managers the same amount of money. But that's only one part of the whole equality piece. A lot of this is about valuing your players equally. So the really obvious things for that is both teams play at the main ground. This is just a part of how we operate. We have the same marketing budget for the 2 teams.
We've seen with increased ticket sales for both the men and the women, with attendance, both teams doing much better than they were before the equality campaign came in.
The women's attendance is quadrupled within 2 seasons. We're just trying to create this culture where people understand that it's good for the whole club to progress together.
We don't want to go into the WSL and our men's team like stay where they are or get relegated. We want to both rise together.
In the summer last year, we were awarded a grant of almost £1 million to establish a brand new pitch. That fund was specifically designed to invest into professional women's football. So it's our women's team that got the grant for the pitch, but it's the men that get to play on it as well.
We speak about it a lot as a team. As the more successful that we can be on the field, the more powerful this equality message is. Both teams can grow. It's not just like women's football and men's football, it's just football, it's just Lewes FC.
Previously, Lewes FC had been approached by a gambling company who wanted to sponsor the club. The company offered what would have been the biggest sponsorship deal that Lewes had ever received. However, the club was concerned by the exposure of gambling within football and the rise of problem gamblers, so decided to reject the money.
Rather than put the gambling company on our shirt fronts, we went to a local charity that supports people who have lost loved ones to gambling-related suicide.
It's just little things like that maybe are not thought of in other clubs.
We're at 2,400 owners now. We only need a few more thousand to become the most owned club in England, and then once we do that, we'd like to be the most owned club in the world. We've already proven in a tiny way with no resources and no marketing and no advertising, we've already got owners in 40 countries. You can become an owner on the website, it's lewesfc.com/owners. People sign up for either £50 a year or £5 a month just to contribute to the club that way, and then access all the live streams, for example, and the other benefits that we have at the club.
The days where we do have those disappointing results, maybe a loss in the last minute or difficult injuries and stuff, it's just knowing that you're part of a special community that's more than just a game. I know how cliche it sounds, but I coach teams on a Saturday morning, little kids. Honestly, they don't know the difference. They're not going through the same experiences a lot of us footballers did, where we weren't allowed to play with the boys. They just think it's normal, and that's because they're living in a community, Lewes FC, where they're told that men and women are equal, and that's just not the case elsewhere.
If clubs don't innovate, don't change, they're gonna dry up and die. I honestly think that the number one thing you need to do is have fresh ideas, and that means opening up the way that you run to including people that you don't normally hang out with. Like, you need to have a diverse board. It's so important to have completely different perspectives in a room. I think that I see a lot of football clubs that have the same people around the table. They're all kind of the same, they all agree with each other. So you're not going to get that much change or innovation. Being able to test and pilot things, sometimes it can be fun and sometimes it will work. Our beach huts, which we have as directors' boxes, it was literally an April Fool's joke. And then people went, actually, that would be quite cool. So we established them and people absolutely love them. So maybe the real piece of advice is for every football club to have a moment and think, what is my USP? What makes me different to another club down? If there's nothing different between you and the other team apart from the town that you're in, that for me that's not going to keep people engaged.
From an outside perspective, I can see sometimes where the controversy comes in. How are they doing that? It's change, so people are reluctant to change as human beings. But I think if you just come down here, meet the people, come and watch a game, have one of the pies, like the fries, the drummers, like it's such a special place, and like you can't help but fall in love with Lewes FC. Yeah.
If you don't invest in your women's team, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, because you have the opportunity to have two income streams, but most clubs choose only to have one, and then they see the women's team as some kind of entity that they kind of have to have, or they feel as a drain on resources. But if you invest in that so that it can grow and so it can thrive, suddenly you've got two teams that can actually generate fandom, that can generate sales, that can generate merchandise sales, that can get bums on seats. The clubs that are not investing in their women's team are just behind the curve now. The longer they leave it, the harder it's going to be for them to actually catch up with where we're going.